you can't shoot an Ocado driver.
I went to your house once and all of the light bulbs were red. It was very strange.
Yeah, well, it's that or just stand outside on a log.
I don't know, do you want Tom Cruise in your job?
And then you're basically doomed and you end up drinking urine and eating Frank when he dies.
They need their avocados. We're not
They
monsters. Do you wear a wig?
What?
You know you got really long hair. Is it a wig?
Would you think I'm like a witch or something? Hello everybody, thank you for joining us. This is IMRG Takes On, and this is our regular podcast that we do now. And what we do on here every episode is we take a theme and then we try and smash it to bits and fail miserably. So this time we're looking at the history, but the history of e-commerce more specifically. So we're going to give you a little bit of a history of e-commerce, and then we're also just going to talk about historical figures who we think would be really good at e-commerce companies. And we're also going to get in some of the historical eras that really would have benefited from e-commerce. And they were denied that by the fact that technology was too slow. And I think that's a disgrace.
It is.
I'm Andy Mulcahy. So when you hear a voice that sounds a bit like this and you think to yourself, I wish I sounded like him, or I wish I had a friend that sounded like him, and then when they rung me, this could be the voice that I hear, then that's me you hear. And if it's not that, then it's
me, Tom Jacobs, the voice of someone who isn't quite as annoying and self-congratulating on the sound of his own voice. So Andy, as we've already established, you're a nerd for e-commerce. We know that. When can you put a line in the sand and go, e-commerce is happening now?
technically, you can say there are some disputes about this, but the first e-commerce transaction, so the first time that someone bought something online was 1994. This is kind of the one that people seem to agree on. Do you know what it was that they bought?
I've got something in my head, but I think it's wrong. I met a guy...
When I feel like that, I just say it.
Yeah, why not? It either makes it in the edit or it doesn't. There's a guy I met in Spain who was a millionaire who told me that he was the first ever transaction online and he sold Viagra online.
So he's just some bloke who hangs around in a bar and says things to people.
Is that not right?
No.
Shocking.
And don't talk to him again. And the actual thing was a CD, and it was Sting, and it's called 10 Summoners Tales. Look, you've probably not heard it. It's not a famous album.
No.
But that was the officially sort of the first transaction, if you like, or so they say.
But where was it sold?
On the internet.
Well, yeah, but like what website? What website is selling CDs in 1994?
One of them online ones.
Oh, what? Was it like the music company?
No, because it wasn't a proper sort of website transaction. It was more like a test sort of thing.
Right.
You know, but it worked and the payment went through.
It sounds really stupid. And then there wasn't credit cards then? And you had like...
Yeah.
You know, I was 3 at the time. I obviously didn't have a bank account, or if I did, I didn't know about it. It's not like checkbooks then. You had a chip and pin facility.
Didn't have a chip and pin facility, but you had a credit card, and you'd have to basically give someone the numbers in order to make the transaction.
Sting, interesting.
Come on leaps and bounds since then.
So when did it land in the UK? When did Britain start taking it on?
Well, that's the interesting thing about why I think we need to go into this e-commerce. Now, what I've done here, I've picked out some points, because obviously as soon as I start talking about it, you listening might say, well, you've missed out this. You're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about.
What about this brand? Yeah.
Exactly. But I've decided to not focus on companies as such or financial events, although I might reference them a little bit, but to focus on technology, because the story of e-commerce really is a story of technology. It's got us to this point when technology starts to make things work a bit better. Generally speaking, e-commerce gets a bit of a kick. Not a kick up, not a kick down.
A lift.
A lift, there you go. Whenever I think about lifting someone, I just think of kicking.
You do too much karate, I think. Okay, start then. So what was the technological breakthrough that started it all in the UK?
So you have to go pre-internet in order to understand this one. But why did e-commerce take off in the UK and give us a bit of a lead? So if you go around and speak to other countries, you know, the US is obviously a lead country. China in the last sort of 15 years has really come on and is also a very, very strong one. But we've always been regarded as being a really strong e-commerce market. And the reason for that, like, why did it start here and not so much in other countries? There's a few things that went in our favour. One of them is that we already did what back then it was called distance selling. So distance selling was catalogues, basically. You'd look in the catalogue for something you like, you'd find the number.
The Argos catalogue, the classic, the other brands are available. But that was like the excitement of Christmas. You'd look 6 months out and be like, ooh, what are you going to get? You're going to get this slide. You're going to get this PlayStation. You know?
So, I said I wasn't going to focus on companies, but Argos is a good example of someone who basically was doing distance regulation, but up close, right? So you go into their shop and there's a catalogue and then you look through it and someone, you know, you sort of pop it into a kiosk and then someone goes and gets it out the back. And that effectively, that model is what the internet, what e-commerce is.
Yeah.
So we had catalogs, so we're already doing it anyway. And then the other thing that we've got here is we're small. And we've got a motorway system that means you can move things around really quickly.
Yeah, I did think about this.
So we're just well set up to do that. And I think that's probably why we were able to get ahead. And the impression that I get from speaking to people is we still are ahead, even though we've hit the skids in the last 10 years or so in this country. It's not been great. I still get the impression when I speak to people from other countries who work in e-commerce that they still look to us and see what we're doing as where they're going kind of thing.
Essentially, we just evolved from a catalogue. So, Andy, something that you suggested, which I quite liked and have jumped on, is different job titles within your e-commerce organisation that could be filled by historical figures of the past. So there's about 4 or 5 of the job titles here. I'll let you go first and explain your choice, and then I'll follow up with who I think is my choice, and we'll debate who's the best for that particular position.
Okay, dream team.
Dream team of e-commerce directors from historical figures. So you start.
So, yeah, I mean, put them together, my little team here, who are going to take the brand forward.
It's almost your 5-a-side, isn't it?
It is a 5-a-side, actually.
Yeah.
So, because a lot of companies, only 5 people work there, apparently. Well, if you've got your big hitters, like we're doing here, maybe that's all you need.
I think it is.
So, e-commerce director, I've gone Confucius.
E-com director, he's the Chinese philosopher, right? So, explain why.
Well, for e-com directors, what I got to do is look at, all the stuff that they're offering and how do we optimize this and how do we make that good? And some of that's quite pedantic. And there is no more pedantic man in history than Confucius. I mean, he literally would, he'd walk in and there'd be a certain way that he has to walk. And then when he sits down, he'd have to have everything laid out. And a little bit me, if we're being honest.
I was just thinking, it's very you.
But the whole point of that was, he was trying to get people to think about how they live their lives and do it in the right way and everything. And I think that's the guy you need to optimize your product pages. I mean, he's going to know how big that image should be. And he knows what sort of zoom you're going to be needing, not to mention font.
Well, I'm just excited that I've got a new nickname for you. You will be Confucius in the office going forward. I've gone for my e-com director with Queen Elizabeth I. So she obviously ran the UK she was the longest serving monarch, I think, until the second or maybe Victoria, I'm not sure. But she went on for like 44 years. She held the country together after a pretty turbulent time with Henry VIII and things. She basically single-handedly rallied the troops before the Spanish Armada came and fended off the Spanish Armada. She gave a famous speech. She's the organizational figurehead behind it all, who I think could probably absolutely smash the job of an e-com director.
How's she going to optimize his search bar?
Well, how's Confucius?
Because he's so pedantic. I mean, he's going to go through every word.
He doesn't even know what a laptop is. What are you talking about? Neither does Elizabeth. But I'm just saying, I'm talking of like figureheads, and I want to employ a strong British woman.
Don't get it. I don't see how to, optimising, your returns area.
If she could keep the country together from Catholics and Protestants going at each other and trying to rip each other's throats out, I reckon she could deal with a search bar problem.
Confucius is our e-com director.
Well, I disagree, but
Logistics director. I've gone for 2 possibilities here. I'm not too sure which. But Napoleon is a possibility.
The man who famously went too far to Moscow, got his supply lines cut off, and then all of his army froze to death on the way back.
But then everyone does that.
What a great choice.
Everyone does that. But he did pretty well other than that. But if you're going to discount him on just the fact that he murdered half his army marching across freezing
call me pedantic, but I don't think that's great logistics.
Call me pedantic. I am Confucius.
Is that it?
Hannibal was my other choice there because let's face it, he did manage to get a load of elephants
Not a bad choice.
over the Alps. That must have taken some organisation. You're trying to send parcels to Dubai or whatever. I think Hannibal might be your man. Now, most of the elephants did die. That doesn't really come through
but some did make it. They famously then routed the Romans at the Battle of Cannae. However, they did eventually lose.
If you're the logistics director and someone says to you, from higher up on the board, how did we get on with delivering those parcels? And you say, well, some of them made it. Do you think that maybe I'm on a loose, I'm not on my sure footing here. Who have you got?
So I've got a guy who won, right? He did it and won. So I've gone for
Usain Bolt.
Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, in charge of the logistics of all of D-Day, which was and is the most complex, biggest naval landing ever to have happened in history. The detail to go into providing everyone's food, clothes, backup, ammunition, all of that stuff, all to arrive in Normandy, save the world. I think you got to go him.
I think he had a smashing tash as well, if I remember.
He did. He was a stand-up gentleman.
He's our guy.
He's our guy. I got one. Logistics director. 1-1. Okay, well, let's just touch back on the history of e-commerce for a second. What's next? When did it next leap? Because obviously it was fairly infant stages then. When did it become this multi-billion-dollar thing?
Pre-2000, it was basically a joke. I mean, if you did have like an internet connection, but you had these modems. I don't know if people remember those modems.
Yeah,
but
because when you used to dial up to it,
that amazing noise.
I didn't realise. I thought that was unique to you. I didn't realise. Well, to your house, I didn't realise that was the sound that absolutely everybody heard. I thought that was just it was just my house thing.
I think back then they weren't massively into UX, because if I was trying to convince people that this is working, I wouldn't make the sound of something breaking.
Yeah.
Which is effectively what modem sound
and also, our computer was upstairs and we had to run a massive Ethernet cable all the way down the stairs and plug it into the phone socket.
And it was
a bit impractical. And then you'd hear mum trip up the stairs,
It's not good. But obviously, with the connection was the main thing, because if you ever tried to do a transaction over one of them dial-up modems, it was so rubbish, it's unbelievable. And the page would hang and you wouldn't really know whether the payment had gone through or not. And it still kind of says it now, don't refresh your browser sometimes if you're doing a payment. And that was just like the word. But then when you got to broadband in about 2004, we started rolling out broadband, I think, and then you got Wi-Fi. Then suddenly things start to change, right? Because it's a bit more reliable. And when people trust that you can buy something through this, then they're far more likely to do it. Yeah. And then what that also did was it brought in devices. So suddenly with Wi-Fi, you can connect devices to it, right? So you can connect smartphones and tablets and things. And they were transformational.
Well, I remember because we always used to track tablets as like a device share thing, and always smartphones. Tablets used to be surprisingly big. I thought the novelty of tablets wore off after like 4 years, and people went, well, do you know what? Just use my phone. People love them still.
I think the tablet has gone into a niche. So people did used to use it, because I know it's impossible to think of now, but before phones, and people just using them kind of all the time. When phones first came, got smart or whatever you'd express it, they were rubbish. Yeah. And the websites are rubbish because they hadn't optimized their site. So if you're trying to buy something, the checkout page was designed for a long screen, as in you'd see on a computer screen, but it was sort of sandwiched into a smartphone, and it was rubbish. But the tablet is the same sort of size and layout as a screen. So it worked actually pretty well there. So people would use that. And there was this thing called second screening, where people would sit in front of the TV. Again, I know this is just like second nature now, but at the time it was like, oh my God, people are sat in front of the TV and they're shopping online. God. And it was this new concept.
What did people do?
Shopping.
Talk to each other? Disgusting.
Exactly. Get the fire on.
Exactly.
And then smartphones were obviously a big thing as well. And then they brought in things like, mobile payments, which have been a pretty big deal for people. And they made apps, right? So those things super-powered e-commerce.
Yeah. Right, I think it's time for our next bit of historical figures, the next two jobs that we need to fill.
Merchandiser,
you go.
I've gone for Clive of India.
Because I'm interested in this, because I've got absolutely no idea who Clive of India is.
He was one of the old chaps of Empire.
Right.
So during the Indian times, if we can call them that, he was over there, and he was the guy who helped himself as much as possible. So he went over there and just took as much resource as he possibly could and enriched himself.
A rather large tea leaf.
But he got recalled to Parliament, and they said, look, I'm not being funny, mate. There's been a few complaints about you. You do seem to just be taking everything for yourself. And he gave this little speech where he said, if you were there and you were faced with all the riches that I saw, frankly, I stand astonished at my moderation.
Oh, right.
Everyone was so convinced in that Parliament of chaps, his reasoning there, that they just said, yeah, crack on. And he got away with it. I think he got like a round of applause.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's like you've done something wrong.
If that guy can lie and just make it sound amazing, I think he's our guy for merchandising.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can make a valid point. I've gone for Marco Polo. Famously travelled the Silk Road, bought trade from Europe all over to Asia. He was with the Khans, who would give him like a gold tablet so he could go and trade across the whole of Asia and he wouldn't be bothered. I think he's a pretty solid choice as well. I don't think he was stealing as he went. I mean, this other guy, Clive of India, the fact that you can just get caught out and go, well, do you know what? I would have done more of it. That's pretty mad, isn't it?
What was he merchandising?
What, Marco Polo? Well, he was getting stuff from Asia and bringing it back to Europe as well. He was sending it back and forth. I feel like you're going to discount me, aren't you? You're going to go with an astonishing thief as our merchandiser.
That one's Ty.
Ty. All right. So, do you know what? We'll
Let's go for Mary Berry. Sod it.
All right, fine. Head of HR. Who you got?
So I've gone Florence Nightingale because I think the image of her is this sort of lady at a lamp being nice to the soldiers and all that. Whereas actually she was just like ruthless, in your face, like this is what's got to happen and you've got to make it up. Yeah. She really, really pushed everyone around, gave the authorities a lot of trouble and was, this very, like basically forced things to happen that shouldn't really be happening. I think if you need things sorting out in your office, she's the one to make it happen.
I've gone with Friedrich Nietzsche as my head of HR.
Wow.
Very, very much, sort yourself out sort of bloke. It's very much you come to me with a problem. He's like, well, you look at yourself. He's all about countering nihilism. It could be a controversial choice. I feel like you wouldn't necessarily get much sympathy with him, but, I think you'd enjoy Nietzsche as a head of HR.
See, having read some of his books, I can tell you that it's very tough read.
But have you ever been sent an email from HR? It's a tough read.
Yeah, all right, maybe as I go. All right.
Yeah, he's also, he's trying to get you to break free some societal norms and, all of this stuff. I just feel like it's a very HR role.
Worth adding, he did end up in a madhouse.
Back on the history for a second. Well, I noticed in the notes there you got Facebook. How does Facebook play into it? I'd understand if you'd gone with eBay or you'd gone with Amazon or something. Why Facebook?
I haven't really focused on Amazon here. I know everyone will think, why haven't you focused on Amazon? There's a massive thing. But Facebook was a different type of business. And I think this gets sort of lost now because everyone just uses social media like it's a normal thing. When it came out in about 2006.
Mate, I was on a MySpace before that. The OGs know MySpace.
But they worked in a total different way. Those things, they Facebook was like, oh, you can kind of connect with people and you can look at what each other are doing. Oh, great, I'm going to share what I had for breakfast. It's so stupid that you actually need to see that stuff. Before that, I never used to share I didn't used to take photographs of my breakfast and go and show it to people. Just wasn't really a thing, But that completely changed all that. But the thing is, it didn't make any money for ages. And then I remember around about 2009, 2010, when people started to talk about how is Facebook that everybody's gone on. No one's ever acquired customers and users in this way before. It was completely new. How's it going to make money? And at that moment, Zuckerberg had the world at his feet. I mean, he was like the main businessman. Everyone thought, my God, this guy has invented this new way of doing stuff. But how's he going to make money? And then because basically he doesn't really have a personality or particularly any imagination, he's just let people kind of tell him what to do. And we've ended up with this sort of advertising world and all the nastiness of social media where we've ended up. It's extremely disappointing. But it was a big, big difference the way that it came in because it changed the way that people use the internet. If effectively, social media now is the internet. You have websites, sure, but when you talk about, I read this thing on the internet, people tend to mean, I saw this thing on social media.
Yeah, I mean, it's also just a huge way to get someone to your site, isn't it? I mean, TikTok Shop is absolutely huge. Instagram, the meta universe, as they call it. All of that is essentially just adverts nowadays to gain you to go to someone's site. By the way, you and Mark Zuckerberg, similarities, I would say.
Go. Is it the hair?
It's the love of fighting. He's a big MMA guy. It's the, when you look at someone just out of the corner of your eye and you go, he hasn't moved in like 10 minutes.
And he's like a lizard.
There's something a bit lizardy about you two. Not in a bad way, but I don't know if that's ever going to be taken in a good way.
I have a big desire for water, actually.
Yeah.
Like quite a lot. I drink a lot of water.
Red. I went to your house once and all of the light bulbs were red. It was very strange.
Yeah, well, it's that or just stand outside on a log for 14 hours. And you know what it's like in Britain. You can't do that all the time, can you?
Not every weekend, no. Time for our next bit of historical figures.
Content writer. I've gone for Marchmont Needham.
Right, again, never heard of him, but fabulous name.
He's one of them blokes that, I don't know, people should kind of know him, but he's just sort of faded as time's gone by. So during the Civil War in
which one?
England.
Right.
He was this pamphleteer, basically. He was like the journalist of his time.
Okay.
The tabloid bloke, if you like. And he was massively behind the royalists. He'd write all this stuff like, what are these upstarts up to? The royalists, the king, all this. And then he was passionately into it. And then when he realised that they'd lost, he just switched immediately and went to the Puritans. And then he wrote about how great they are and, how bad the king is and all that. And then when things turned the other way, he just went back to the rules. And I just think if you got a guy who can produce a bit of content, not too bothered about his moral scruples, maybe he's a guy.
Well, it would. There's a real theme of like criminals.
Well, that's British history for you.
But there you go. Yeah, I've gone with L. Ron Hubbard as our content writer. Now, he is obviously the guy who created Scientology, and that in itself is unbelievably strange. He holds the Guinness World Record for the most published works. He's got 1,084 published books. He's written more science fictions than anyone in the history of the world. If you need content being pumped out day after day, this is your guy. He doesn't stop. He doesn't take a break. And he started a religion. I mean, if that's not your content writer, I don't know who is.
It attracts certain weirdos, though, doesn't it? And, in our ecom business, do we want weirdos?
I don't know. Do you want Tom Cruise in your job? No. Do you want him to be a brand ambassador? I reckon L. Ron Hubbard could help you out there.
Is it a bit Gwyneth Paltrow? Is that the sort of thing she's into?
She would love L. Ron Hubbard as a content guy. I will say he was charged with fraud in a French court, but because he wasn't there, he never served his sentence. If we're going to have Clive of India considered, I think you have to consider L. Ron Hubbard.
All right. Well, I mean, it sounds like we'll probably have Florence and Confucius working there and everyone else would be in jail. But other than that, I reckon we're going to take Ecom Boss Storm.
Back on the history of e-commerce, let's get to Black Friday and peak and stuff. It's obviously huge in America. When was that? When was the first year that was was that the 2010s? Did that take off? Was it in store before it was online?
I won't go into massive amount of detail about Black Friday here because there's a whole podcast to come about Black Friday.
Fair.
But it started in about 2009. So Amazon, they're back. So they brought that over. And that really, I think, was the big thing that they did because before that, you never used to discount in the lead up to Christmas. People need to buy. The demand is there. You don't need to discount. And then what they did was just shove it in everyone's face. And the way that they did it, you can't possibly have a situation now where you can't discount in the lead up to Christmas. If you just had shops and you didn't have the internet, there's no way that this would have happened. There's no way. But the internet has done that. And you can see the competition very clearly at the click of a button. They're discounting. Oh, great. Okay, I'm going to go and buy from them. And it makes that sort of stuff happen. And that totally changed the shape of the year for retail. Christmas used to be the big thing. You used to get a big jump in spend between November and December, and now it's changed. And now the jump is between October and November, and you get a decline between November and December because of Black Friday. Totally changes shape. But again, I'm not going to go into more detail because there is a future edition about Black Friday.
Talk about a cliffhanger. COVID just completely changed e-commerce from my perspective. It was, and you look at it, the index will show it. I think it got so many more people on board into shopping that never would have necessarily done it. Explain.
The COVID thing was an immediate hit. I mean, no one could not notice the day after the lockdown that things changed. Right? Things are going a bit different, but it hasn't lasted, I think, is the thing. And we humans are not good actually at adapting. We sort of are and we're sort of not. And that sort of brought about this big change.
I'd argue we're the best at adapting, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, but not in a lasting way because what that did hasn't lasted. All that stuff. So yeah, there was a boost for e-commerce. It was like, oh, that's the high street dead. It can't come back from this. It has.
Yeah, but it was your only option to buy something was online. So you still would have got more customers, but when the stores started reopening and you could go outside, you're probably going to do some of it back outside. You're not just going to strictly stay to sort of buying online, are you?
Well, that's fair, but it hasn't gone. Let's say that online was 25% of retail, and then it goes up to 40% or something, and then it's just kind of gone back to about 30 or something. Right, it hasn't really made that meaningful change. The changes in food, people weren't really doing their big deliveries for the week for food. Yeah. They had to during that, and then a lot of that stayed. It's big for that. I think the Deliveroo stuff all sort of come out around that time. Big for them as well, actually, because it meant that people were doing a lot more ordering remotely, and it really boosted that sort of food delivery thing. But I think if you look at buying a physical thing, I think we've just sort of gone back to a little bit ahead of where we were, but not as if COVID never happened.
Is there anyone you think would have benefited from e-commerce in history? Had it been around at the time to, I don't know, save lives or help with a scenario?
I do. I think e-commerce could have come in handy quite a few times, really. So if you imagine yourself under siege, right, in your castle, and it's like, oh no, they've cut us off, all our supplies and everything are gone. And then you're basically doomed and you end up drinking urine and eating Frank when he dies. If you've got e-commerce, you just go, just book an Ocado, isn't it?
Yeah, see, my initial problem with that is you're under siege. So unless you've got Amazon's drones coming and dropping it in for you, no one's getting to you anyway.
Because we're talking about the age of e-commerce, but you can't shoot an Ocado driver. They're generally sort of nice people who work in the, local. They live in the local community. You don't go, oh right, kill him. You go, oh, that's Terry.
If you're surrounding a castle
I went to
and
school
you've
with
got a
his
load of
sister.
guys with bow and arrows, and then you go, oh, hang on, no, it's fine. They've just got, it's just the Ocado guys coming through. Don't worry, you let them through. They need their avocados. We're not monsters.
Do.
Yeah.
Avocado on toast. I mean, they would have loved that back then.
Yeah. Okay, fine. I would have said, so obviously it sort of played its part in the current pandemic, but I would have said, any sort of biblical plague that has happened in previous times, oh God, there's a plague of locusts coming. What do I need? If I can just get some e-commerce with some of those electric fly swatters and maybe some bug spray. I mean, that would have saved a lot. So I'm thinking of, when they used to go into they were discovering the jungle in like the South American stuff. Everyone's getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. I'm just going to order some spray, stop myself from itching.
Or Egypt, the Passover.
Yeah.
Is it okay to electric fly swat God?
We'll save that for the IMRG Takes On God podcast coming.
We'll die shortly after that, I think.
I think so.
The other thing what I thought would be good is, when they built Stonehenge and then basically these old blokes 5,000 years ago, whatever, with no technology, had to drag all those slabs.
From Wales, by the way.
From Wales. And
Crazy,
I'm just thinking to myself, if you had e-commerce, you just go, look, should we drag all them stones? Can I just order them online?
Yeah. And they'll come and set them up as well, a team of two, just like you get with your sofa from DFS.
Where do you want them delivered? That field.
Yeah, do you mind just put them in the middle? All right, what are you building? Don't know yet.
Couldn't put them up, could you?
Don't know, but can you just put them up? We're going to let people 5,000 years time dance around it in a summer solstice. Yeah,
I mean, it'll be fun. I also think, some of the fashions that have gone down the years, like when people used to wear wigs in the 18th century, and it's a fashion, but they used to wear them because everyone had hair lice. And it would keep the lice off your head.
Well, so the wigs famously came about because there was, I can't remember which French king it was. It was Louis the something. There's been like 15 of them. I can't remember which one.
Probably the 14th.
He had, lice and leprosy or something like that. But definitely lice. And he started wearing wigs. So everyone, not to offend him, was like, we'll put some wigs on because we don't want the king to get really angry. And that created that whole wig phase in the whole of Europe.
But it's also handy for keeping the lice off, you see. But I'm thinking if you've got e-commerce, Head and Shoulders. You're going to order your shampoo.
Yeah.
You're going to order, again, your fly swats. I feel like fly swats are doing well here, actually. I might set up an e-commerce site that sells fly swats.
Mulcahy'sflyswats.com.
Who wouldn't go to that?
Yeah.
And also...
But you can sell wigs as well.
Who's going to bid on Mulcahy's fly swats on Google? I'm going to pay nothing for my AdWords.
Yeah, I don't think anyone needs to bid. That's the thing. Who's searching that? Do you wear a wig?
What?
You got really long hair. Is it a wig?
What do you think? I'm like a witch or something?
Yeah, well, I just think it's a look, isn't it? It's a look. And I just thought, is it a wig? Maybe you've lost your hair and you haven't told anyone.
Maybe I'm from the 18th century and I've got like really bad lice. If I have, by the way, I mean, they can jump them things.
All right, coming back just quickly to round out the history of e-commerce here. Same day delivery didn't really, it sort of did take off. Amazon still do it. I think they're the only ones who can. Again, not going to talk about them though. The metaverse where you could go, I don't know, instead of going to a shop, you can just put on some VR goggles and pretend you're in a shop talking to people. Didn't take off. I'm not surprised. One thing that I know that you particularly hated at the time and still do hate is the idea of voice shopping. So sort of like getting, sorry if your phone's out, Siri to do your shopping for you, something like that. They've never taken off.
I think this is back to, the consultants got a bit of a kick in last episode.
With the coloured pounds.
And we're going back to giving them a bit of a boot in them.
Tell you what, big consultancy is not going to like us.
But, and again, I'm not mentioning Amazon, but when Amazon brought in same-day delivery, there was suddenly this expectation, oh my God, everyone's just going to expect same-day delivery and we're going to have to go from 2 to 3 days, whatever we offer now. So we've just got to magically, someone orders something and magically it appears in their lap. And obviously this is clearly stupid. And it's okay for someone, with the resource of Amazon to do that. But ultimately, I think people came to understand that this isn't likely. This isn't really possible. Yeah. In order for me to get something really quickly, the stock of anything that I need to buy has to be in proximity to me.
Well, it's like the only one that's ever stayed as well, because they're just so big that they can do it. But there were so many of these other companies, like, I don't know if you know, Gorillas, which were essentially just, you could buy, it's just a supermarket.
I know Gorilla Glue.
And they would just come around in like half an hour. And you'd be like, oh, I just want some tin foil and some wraps.
There's also Gorillaz the animal and Gorillaz the band. So what are we talking about here?
Well, the Gorillaz of the band weren't delivering my groceries to me. But no, it was so convenient. And then they just were like, oh, we can't sustain it, and just folded. There was lots of them like that couldn't sustain the one-day model.
But it's because it's stupid. I think, the internet sort of gives you this idea that, you can just have everything like really quickly. But life isn't really like that, because the physical reality still exists. If something's got to be moved towards you, then someone's going to charge the company to move it to you, right? So there's all this cost involved in it. And, when you buy a pair of trousers, do you need it in 20 minutes? Or can you wait a day,
Yeah, I think a lot of it you can wait a day. I think
it depends on the situation, clearly.
Well, I mean,
what has happened to your trousers?
I mean, if you're caught out, you're with your family, all of a sudden, I won't say why, but you need some new trousers pretty urgently, then, hey, maybe big Amazon are your team. I don't know.
Other false start, though, you mentioned there was metaverse.
Yeah.
And, Facebook believed in the metaverse so strongly, they renamed themselves Meta.
Mm.
And this is one of those consultant things where it gets kind of pushed around as, everybody's going to be in the metaverse. We're all going to wear these goggles, so no one's going to experience life anymore.
It was very Ready Player One, wasn't it?
Don't worry if you're going to walk into a lamppost. Don't worry about that, because, you can just walk down the street with your goggles on, interface with pterodactyls or whatever, and then that'll be your actual existence. But, you are going to trip over the curb. Someone is going to punch you in the face and steal your £500 glasses. This is reality intervening. And, so the metaverse was an absolute fart in a bag, and it never got going.
It was also it was solving a problem no one asked to be solved.
No, because reality exists.
Yeah.
So you don't need to recreate reality.
Whereas AI is coming in such a big way now, but it's almost like that is actually, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a problem that we're trying to solve. I think there are some instances where it is, but it's more just a convenience thing. Meta just seemed to be like we're going to rewrite everything, whereas AI is more like it's going to help you along the way, is what I would see it as anyway.
Yeah, it was stupid. And I think it's been sort of shown up for that. What's the virtual world that you need? If you want to go to the moon, then the virtual world. If you want to go to the bottom of the sea, that is quite hard. So being able to do that in your special glasses is one thing. I just don't see what the use case is most of that. If I was going to go to the bottom of the sea and hang out for a bit, I'd probably do it for 10 minutes. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't stay down there. Voice is the other thing that you mentioned. And voice is the stupidest thing that's ever happened as well, because there was this idea that everyone's just going to use voice and you won't need to use your fingers to tap on anything anymore. Whereas actually, if you think about the use cases for it, in order to use a voice assistant, you have to say to it, can you do this for me? And that's fine. But if you can't see what you're doing, then you don't really know what you're getting. So it's never really, other than, turn on BBC Radio or whatever, that's basically what it is. Or set an alarm for 10 minutes. Well, for goodness sake, I mean, you can do that in lots of other ways, can't you? And then using it in the office is obviously impossible, because, I'm just going to sit next to these 25 people and just talk really loud and sending out all these commands, which might trigger their ones and set off their thing. You can't use it on a bus. You can't use it on a train. So it doesn't particularly work, but it sent everyone into a tailspin in business, because there was suddenly this statistic thrown around that by 2020, and I think this was in about 2017 or 2018, not long to plan for this statistic started going around that said by 2020, half of searches online will be voice. Right? Everyone got in a panic and said, well, what am I supposed to do? How do I need to structure more product content? Oh my God, how are we going to show up? What's the source of that information? Some bloke on stage just blurted it out. Just blurted it out on stage, and then it got passed around like it was this fact. And it does make me wonder about, because I'm not that careful about some of the things that I say.
Shut up.
And I have been on stage and said things before, and I do wonder, have I influenced things that have made people ruin their businesses?
I don't know. I think you're over-exaggerating how much people listen to you. I would also say that sounds like another big consultancy scam. They're getting it in the neck from us here, big consultancy, but don't trust them as far as you can throw them.
No, they're on the list. It's them and bouncers and rugby players when they're out on a night out. You don't want to be near them.
There's a podcast there for another time. Right, that was a whirlwind of history and e-commerce in one podcast. Andy, how do you think we did? Did we take it on?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you either learned something about the history of e-commerce, or you sat there and thinking, why didn't he mention this? Which is perfectly reasonable. But, you're talking about 30 years, 32 years, I think e-commerce has been going on technically.
Yeah.
We can't get it all in however long this thing is.
Exactly. And, you know, this is a free service, so don't complain about it.
Did we win?
Give us a bleed pass. I reckon it was maybe a draw, 1-0 after extra time to history.
Getting closer.
We are getting closer. And we will continue with this theme by doing the future of e-commerce in the next episode, where we will touch a lot more on AI and what we can expect going forward. But until then, thank you for listening. Like and subscribe and all the good stuff that you do on your platforms. Otherwise, we will see you next time.
Toodle pip.